Hello everyone, I am Assistant Professor Jayendra Patel from Mechanical Engineering Department, Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Technical Education and Research Center, Navsari. This is the fourth lecture on the force measurement, and in this lecture we are going to learn about measurement of the torque, which is available in the fifth unit of Mechanical Measurement and Metrology, a subject of fourth semester. So in this lecture we are going to understand what is a torque, how to measure the torque. Then we will be learning the types of dynamometers. Dynamometers are basically used to measure the torque or say the power. And then we will be concentrating on some important absorption type dynamometers. So let us start with the contents. So when we talk about the rotating element or say rotating shaft or say rotating wheels, in that case we identify the value of torque instead of the force, because when we talk about the rotating part, the torque give us the value, how much power is there in that rotating element. So torque is basically defined as the force that is acting on that rotating element multiplied by the distance from the center to the force. Okay, so we can identify torque as the tangential force multiplied by the radius of the wheel if we are talking about the wheel. Okay, because the radius of the wheel, you can observe that this is the center and this is the force that is acting on this particular wheel. Okay, so that's why this is the distance which is identified as radius. So over here this is the basic definition of the torque. Now when we talk about measurement of the torque, we are basically identifying the power that is developed or consumed by that particular rotating part. Okay, if there is a generator, okay, or say there is a motor, the motor will actually try to rotate the shaft. So the rotating part that is available as a shaft is basically developing the rotating power, rotational power. Okay, and many times there is a consumption of power available. So we will be identifying that particular power. Now to identify that power, most cases are using the dynamometers. So dynamometers are basically one of the most common devices that helps us to measure the torque or say power. Okay, so let us start with how the torque is basically measured using the dynamometers. So in this particular figure you can observe that this is a shaft which is basically rotating. Now during the rotation it will have some power. Now if we apply any kind of resisting element, like if we try to apply the brakes on this particular element, what will happen? Due to application of the brakes, this particular torque will create a reaction power in this particular system. Now due to that particular reaction power, what will happen? The whole system will try to rotate with the shaft because I am applying some friction with this particular element. Now what we are going to do, or say what the dynamo principle says, that if this particular element is tending to rotate with the shaft, we will try to check out how much reaction force is being developed in this particular system. And to do that, what we will do, we will add one lever, or say we will add some length to the whole system, which is known as the arm of this particular system, and then we will apply some mass to the system, okay, at some distance that is called r. So what will happen over here, some moment will be generated against that reaction, and by doing the balancing of this particular thing, we will be able to identify the power that is being consumed, or say the power that is being transmitted from this particular shaft to the whole system. Okay, and this is how the dynamometer will work. Okay, so basically in this particular case, what will happen? The torque is basically measured in terms of the reaction force and the arm length, or say angular twist. Now these kind of dynamometers are having some categories. There are basic three categories in which the dynamometers can be classified or say categorized. Very first category is the absorption type category. The second is the transmitted type, and third one is the driving type. Now the absorption type dynamometers are basically used whenever the energy is being absorbed and it is going to be transformed into heat. Okay, so basically we can say that in the absorption type dynamometer, what will happen, whatever the shaft rotation or whatever the shaft power that will be transmitted to the dynamometers, it will be dissipated in terms of the heat. So basically it will be going to get wasted. Okay, now the second category is the transmission type dynamometers. Now the transmission type dynamometers are somewhat different from the absorption type. In the transmission type dynamometer, the energy that is going to be transmitted to the dynamometers for the measurement purpose will not be wasted. Okay, so basically what will happen, that particular energy will be converted to the surrounding by using some useful mechanical or electrical systems. So basically energy will be transmitted from one form to the another form, and that particular form will be used in some work. Okay, it will not be wasted like heat. Okay, so basic difference between absorption type and transmission type is what? In this particular case, whatever the energy that we are going to use for the measurement purpose, that energy is going to be wasted. In the transmission type, the energy that we are going to use for the measurement purpose will be transmitted in another form, so that particular energy is not wasted, it will be just transmitted from one place to another place. Now the third category of the dynamometers is the driving type. Now in this category, what will happen, the power that we are going to use, we are not going to absorb the power, or say we are not going to transmit the power. What we are going to do, we are going to give the power to the system that is going to be tested. Okay, so whatever the system that is going to be tested will be given the power using the motor or the generator, and then we will measure the power using the dynamometer. So then we will measure the torque using the dynamometer. So basically we are giving the power while we are measuring the torque in this particular case. Okay, understood. So this is the basic categories of the dynamometer. So let us check out what are the types of dynamometers available in all the categories. So in the absorption type category, we are having total 4 dynamometers. These are some of the most popular dynamometers. That's why I am using only these names. Okay, so very first dynamometer is the Prony brake dynamometer. The second dynamometer that we are having is the rope brake. The third one is the hydraulic dynamometer, and the fourth one is the eddy current dynamometer. In the second category, which is the transmission type category, it is having the belt transmission dynamometer, the torsion dynamometer, the elliptical dynamometer, or say epicyclic dynamometer. The last one is the strain gauge dynamometer. In the driving type dynamometer, there is one of the most useful dynamometer, only one dynamometer is there, which is known as the electric cradled dynamometer. So for this specific lecture, we are going to check out the absorption type dynamometers. Okay, so let us start with the absorption type dynamometers. And very first dynamometer that we have seen is the Prony brake dynamometer, which is one of the absorption type dynamometer. Okay, now in this dynamometer, what will happen, the kinetic energy that is available in the rotating shaft will be converted into heat by using the friction between the braking mechanism and the pulley that is available on the shaft. Okay, now over here we are going to use the friction element for creating the reaction power. Okay, now these types of dynamometers can be classified in two types. Basically, we are having the block type dynamometer for the Prony brake dynamometer, and second is the bandit type dynamometer. Both workings are almost same, but they are using the brakes, or say they are using the frictional element. So these frictional elements are different in both type of dynamometers. So very firstly, we are going to check out the block type dynamometers. Now in the block type dynamometers, what we are having the wooden blocks that are clamped together over the pulley which is mounted on the shaft. Okay, you can observe over here, this is the practical figure, which is the test rig figure, and this is the normal line diagram. You can observe that there is a wooden block available on the upper side and lower side of the pulley. Okay, so this is the pulley which is connected with the shaft, and the shaft is the rotating element. Okay, and to give the braking power, or say to give the friction, we are going to use these two wooden blocks. Okay, now this particular pulley is, as I told you, this particular pulley is connected with the generator or the motor. Okay, so what will happen, this shaft will rotate with the generator and the motor, and the rotation power will be transmitted to the pulley, and this block will try to create the friction, or say try to resist this rotation. Okay, this is what will happen. Now, as you can observe, these blocks are clamped using two bolts with the nuts at the two side. Okay, now over here you can see the one unique feature, there is a spring attached with this nut and bolt. Okay, now this spring can be attached at the upper side also, or it may be attached in between also. Okay, so basically the work of this particular spring is to maintain the constant pressure between block and the pulley. Okay, so excess pressure will not be applied with the help of this particular spring. Okay, now over here once again you can observe that on the upper part of this particular block you can see one long lever available. There is a arm available over here which is known as the lever. In this particular line diagram you can see at the lower side of the wooden block it is carrying the lever that is available over here. Okay, so there is a lever arm available at the one side of the wooden block. Okay, the length is known, and at the second odd of the lever end we are having some of the known weights placed. Okay, or there may be a spring balance placed. Okay, it is not necessary that you have to put the weight. There may be a spring balance available, or say spring scale available. As you can see in this particular figure we are having the spring scale. Okay, now what the weights will do? Weights will apply some force to the system. Okay, we have to continuously change the weights. Now in this particular figure you can see the spring scale. Spring scale can do the same thing, but it can measure how much weights will be required to balance the system. Okay, we do not need to continuously add the weights to balance the whole system. We can just directly put one spring scale, so it will tell us what are the number of weights that are needed to be put to balance the whole system. Okay, so this is the advantage of the spring scale over here. Now at the another end of the arm we are having the counterweight. Okay, over here this counterweight is basically used to balance the whole dynamometer whenever the shaft is not rotating. Okay, so there is then whenever there is an unload condition, what should happen, the whole dynamometer should be balanced. Okay, whatever the weights we are having and whatever the counter weight we are having, that both systems should be balanced together in the unload condition whenever the whole pulley is not rotating. So this is how the whole pulley brake dynamometer is made. This is what the construction is. Now let us check out how to identify the value of power in this particular system. So for that what will happen, the whole pulley brake dynamometer is kept under some load. So basically whenever the dynamometer is in the action, what will happen, the shaft will be rotated by using the motor or the generator. Due to that the whole pulley system will rotate, and as the pulley will rotate, what will happen, these wooden blocks that are available against that particular pulley will try to apply some friction force on the pulley. So what will happen, whenever the friction force will be applied, the whole dynamometer will try to rotate. Okay, now to stop this particular dynamometer from rotating, there are two stops are provided basically. This is one stop and this is the another stop. So the whole dynamometer do not start to rotate. Okay, now what will happen, to stop this rotation, or say to stop this particular reaction, some weights are added to the system. Okay, so what will happen? The whole reaction force will be balanced against the weight, and once the whole counterbalance is achieved, then the measurement is done. Now let us check out how the measurement is done, how the power will be measured. So let us start with the torque available on the shaft. So basically, let us start with the torque available on the shaft. The torque available on the shaft is given by the angular force multiplied by the radius. This is what we know. So basically, whatever the torque that is available on the shaft will be acting as the reaction force, and that is going to be balanced by this moment that is going to be generated by the counterweights, which is basically W into the length of this particular lever. So we can say that the torque will be balanced against this particular moment W into L. Okay. Now the power basically given by the angular velocity multiplied by the torque that is being developed. So we can write down P is equal to omega into T, where omega is the angular velocity of the shaft and capital T represents the torque. Okay, but we know that the angular velocity is having the one of the most common equation, which is 2 pi n divided by 60. So we will add this value to this particular equation. So we can write down P is equal to what? 2 pi n T by 60. Now over here this whole equation is having the unit W. Now whenever we will identify this value, the value will be too much large. So what we will do? We will use kilowatt in terms of the watts. So to do that, we need to divide the whole equation by 1000. So we will get the whole value in terms of the kilowatt. Now this is the final answer that we have received. You can observe that this is the value of 2 pi, which is the constant value. 60 and 1000 is also a constant value. When we talk about N, capital N is basically what? It is the revolution of the shaft per minute. So basically these are the RPMs of the shaft, and RPMs can be measured by using the tachometer easily. There is an electrical device available which is known as the tachometer, which is specifically used to measure the RPMs of the shaft. So we can measure the RPMs of the shaft easily. The question arises how to measure the torque. Now from the above equation, we can identify that the torque can be easily measured using the reaction that is being developed over here, that is capital W, that are weight used to balance this whole system, multiplied by the length of the lever, and the length of the lever is known, and the weight that we have kept over here are also the known value. So we can replace this capital T with the W into L. So final equation that we are going to receive is 2 pi n WL divided by 60,000. And this is the final equation of the power, or say brake power, that is being required for this particular shaft. Okay, so this is how we can measure the power that is available within the shaft or within the particular pulley using the dynamometer. Okay, and this particular set of equation can be used in the band type dynamometer also. Okay, now this Prony brake dynamometer are having some of the most common advantages. That's why Prony brake dynamometer is used in many places. The very first advantage, it is having a very simple construction. You can directly construct it in any place. Okay, this is having a very simple construction. There is no complexity. Second, as it is having a simple construction, the cost is very less, and it is very suitable for the measurement of the small powers where RPMs are very less. We can easily measure using the Prony brake dynamometers. But it is having also some of the disadvantages. Very first disadvantages is that the coefficient of the friction is reduced due to wear out of the block. So basically for the long run of the dynamometer, it is not that much usable any longer. Okay, so whenever we talk about the long run, that means the longer time of the usage, or say whenever we talk about the larger power, what will happen? The coefficient of the friction will reduce with respect to time. So we cannot use this particular dynamometer for the longer run and the large power measurement. Second, when we talk about the Prony brake dynamometer, as we know, it is the absorption type dynamometer. So basically due to that heat generation phenomenon, the temperature rises, and due to that the coefficient of friction is also tending to change. As the temperature rises, the coefficient of friction will change. So basically, to reduce that particular phenomenon, we have to use some of the cooling system to use this particular dynamometer. And lastly, when the driving torque on the shaft is not that particular uniform, in that particular case, this dynamometer is subjected to severe oscillation. So basically, the balancing of the dynamometer is not that much possible. So whenever we talk about the non-uniform torque, this kind of dynamometers cannot be used. Okay, so as it is simple to construct, it can be used for the uniform RPMs whenever there are uniform RPM, low RPMs, and whenever the system is working on the lower power. In that particular case, we can use the Prony brake dynamometers. Now I am showing you two figures. One of the figure is the band type dynamometer and second figure is the block type dynamometer. You can observe the differences. In the band type of the dynamometer, what is happening? The band is provided, there is a metallic part is there, and above that metallic part there are braking materials attached with that. Okay, so braking material will try to apply the brakes on the system and the power will be measured. Now in this case, this particular braking material is replaced by the wooden blocks for the block type dynamometer. So this is the basic difference between band type and the block dynamometer. The equations are going to remain same. Now let us check out the second type of dynamometer, which is known as the rope brake dynamometer. Now as you can see, the word rope is used. So basically, to apply the friction over here, we are going to use the rope. Okay, so in the rope brake dynamometer, we are normally using 2 or 3 ropes. So basically, we will be having the higher thickness of the rope, and they are wounded around a flywheel or the pulley that is attached with the shaft. Okay, so this is the construction of the rope brake dynamometer. It consists of ropes which are wound around the flywheel. This is the flywheel, or this is the pulley that is attached with the shaft. This shaft will be connected with the motor or the generator, from where the rotational power is coming. Okay, so this is how the whole system is attached. This is the flywheel or say pulley. The ropes are attached something like that. Okay, there will be a single rotation or there will be multiple rotation based on the requirement of the friction. Okay, and with the ropes, you can observe that the upper end of this particular rope is attached with the spring balance, from where I will be measuring the value of the force that is acting in this particular downward in the upward direction. Okay, so over here this spring balance will show me that how much force is acting in the upward direction. So it will be showing me that value. Second end of this particular rope is a free end where the dead weights will be attached. So this is the dead weight section, okay, which will be indicated by capital W. Okay, so this is the second end of the one. Additionally, you can observe that there are some of the wooden blocks available on the flywheel or pulley. Okay, so wooden block will do what? They will apply some extra friction to the flywheel. So there are numbers of wooden blocks available with the ropes to apply some extra friction. Okay, and they are available on the circumference of the flywheel. Now what will happen due to the wooden blocks? Many times what happens, the rope tends to slip from this particular pulley or the flywheel. It will not allow this rope to slip from the flywheel. So block will apply some extra friction, as well as they will not allow the rope to slip from the flywheel. So this is how the whole construction of the rope brake dynamometer is done. Now let us check out how the rope brake dynamometer will work. Now whenever the shaft is rotating, what will happen? The flywheel or the pulley, which is available over here, will try to rotate at the constant speed. Now as we have applied this rope as well as the wooden blocks, and this particular rope is wounded around this particular pulley, what will happen? This particular rope will try to apply some friction to this particular flywheel. Now, initially, whenever the dead weight is not applied, the rope will not apply that much friction. But as we add some weight to this particular end of this rope, the rope will try to apply the frictional torque. Okay, and due to that frictional torque, what will happen? This particular engine will try to transmit the power to this particular rope. Now, over here, the system, this particular system is having the rope, the flywheel and the dead weight. So, in this particular case, what we will say, the flywheel is having the diameter capital D, the rope is having the diameter small d. Rope diameter cannot be neglected as it is having a thick rope. Okay, and let us say the dead weights are having capital W weight, and over here the spring balance is showing me some value, that is S. Okay, so spring balance value will be S. So this is what we are having. So over here you can observe that the flywheel diameter is capital D, but due to the ropes the diameter is getting increased. So we need to identify what is the effective radius of this particular flywheel is, to identify, because we will need that particular radius to identify the torque. So basically we will be identify the effective radius of this particular wheel, that will be equal to small capital D, this diameter of this flywheel, plus the diameter of the rope divided by 2, which will be considered as the effective radius of the wheel. Okay, and we will use this effective radius to identify the torque, and the torque is given by what? The tangential force into the radius of the wheels. Now over here when we talk about the tangential force will be applied by the dead weights very first, that is capital W, that is in the downward direction. But over here this particular system will try to apply some tangential force in the upward direction, which is measured by the spring balance, which is S. So over here if we consider downward direction as W as positive, in that case the tangential force will be plus W minus the spring balance reading, that is S. So ultimately plus W minus S. So answer will be W minus S, which is a tangential force, multiplied by the radius of the wheel, which is basically the R effective radius. Okay, which is capital D plus small d by 2. And as it is not going to change, we are going to use R effective in the equation directly. Now we know the brake power, or say power, 2 pi nt by 60,000 into kilowatt. So in this particular case, as we know, we don't know the value of the torque. So what we will do, we will add this value of the torque, which is W minus S into R effective. So this will be our final equation. Okay, we know the value of capital W, which is the dead weight that we have applied over here. We know the value of the S, which is the reading on the spring balance. R effective is also known because we are having capital D known and small d also known, and other values are the constant. So we can easily identify the brake power of this rope brake dynamometer. So this is how the whole system will work. Now these rope brake dynamometers are also very useful. They are also found in many places whenever we want to identify the torque, and there are some advantages. Very first advantage, they are simple in construction. Second, they are more suitable than the Prony brake dynamometer. They are actually very good in the long run. They can be used in the wide range of the powers. Okay, the range of the power is very good. It can be used for the long test with the little overheating without requiring any kind of the adjustment. Okay, that's why they are so much useful. But they are having some of the disadvantages also. Basically, the accuracy of the rope brake dynamometers are little bit less, and as they are running on the high RPMs also, as well as they are using the rope as the braking mechanism, the cooling system is required. Okay, so this is the use of the rope brake dynamometers. The third category of the dynamometer is the hydraulic dynamometer. Now, many times this kind of dynamometers are also known as the fluid friction dynamometers. Now, the question arises, why this is known as the fluid friction dynamometers? Now, in this case, whatever the dynamometers we have seen in the previous case, very first the Prony brake dynamometer, second is the rope brake dynamometer, they both are using the dry friction for the braking mechanism. But in this case, we are going to use fluid friction for the braking mechanism. This is what the difference between these previous two dynamometers and these particular dynamometers. Okay, so basically the major difference over here is the hydraulic dynamometer uses the fluid friction, as the fluid is used as a braking fluid in this particular case. Okay, so the hydraulic dynamometers that is available over here, it basically works on the water brake principle. Okay, so this particular dynamometer is creating a braking torque using the fluid friction. Let us check out the construction of this particular dynamometer. So this particular dynamometer consists of one rotating disc which is available in the center, and as you can observe, this is the shaft going through it, and this shaft is carrying the rotating power. Okay, so shaft is connected with the motor or the generator, it will carry the rotating power, and this shaft is connected with the rotor, or we can say the rotor is connected with this particular shaft. The rotor will going to rotate, very first thing, and the second element that we are having is the stator that is available around this particular rotor. Okay, now the whole rotating disc is fixed on this particular shaft which is going to be rotating. Okay, and the outer one, the rotor part, is also known as the stationary part, outer part which is known as the stator is also known as the stationary part, or say outer casing, because it is actually enclosing the whole rotor part. That's why it is known as the outer casing, or we can say the stationary casing. Now, this whole stationary casing is mounted with the help of the anti-frictional bearing on this particular shaft. So basically, we can say that the stator part is actually free from the rotating element. Okay, so it is not going to rotate. Secondly, you can see that there are some of the pedestal available, so we can get the support to the stator. Okay, so stator will also obtain the support from the pedestals, extra support. Now over here, the bearing, this particular bearing is actually having the anti-frictional bearing. So this particular bearing will allow the stator to move freely. Okay, so the stator will move freely. Over here, if you observe that there are some of the circular parts available, these are the hollow section, or say elliptical section, which are actually engraved throughout the stator and throughout the rotor. Okay, so these elements are available thoroughly in the circular manner. They are not the circular, they are the elliptical ones, and there is a gap available between the stator and rotor, which is actually the adjustable gap. Okay, so this is how the construction is done in the hydraulic dynamometer. Okay, now let us check out the working of this particular hydraulic dynamometer. Now, when we talk about the working of this particular dynamometer, the rotor is going to rotate with this particular shaft. Okay, so in this particular case, what will happen? This rotor will rotate. Now, in this particular gap as well as the elliptical part of this particular area, the fluid is going to be flown. Okay, now fluid quantity can be changed, and the pressure inside the system can also be changed, and this particular fluid is going to rotate inside this particular area only. Okay, So due to the rotation, what will happen? Very first thing, this particular fluid will rotate something like this. If I just show you the side view of this particular one, so this is a circular disc and the fluid is going to rotate something like this in this circular disc. So it is going to be rotating in a circular manner, something like this. This is going to be rotating in something this way. Okay, so this is how the fluid is going to be rotated. Okay, the direction of the fluid will be something this one. So this, we can say that this is the basically the turbulent zone that is going to be developed inside the fluid. Now due to this particular turbulent zone, the fluid is going to apply some friction. Okay, so the fluid friction is going to be developed on the stator part also, because as the rotor is going to rotate, the fluid is going to be rotated and fluid will generate a vortex which is going to generate some of the eddy current. Eddy currents are basically nothing but turbulence of the water, and due to that eddy currents, the fluid will try to rotate this stator part also. Okay, so this stator part is also going try to rotate the whole is also going to be rotated. Ultimately over here, the same mechanism of the Prony brake dynamometer is going to be used. So basically what will happen, this is our stator available. I am just showing you the side view. This is our stator available, and with the stator there will be one mechanism attached, something like this. This is the lever and this is the spring lever which is attached with this particular mechanism. So ultimately what will happen, whenever the stator will try to rotate, in the direction of the shaft, this whole mechanism will hold this stator and the spring will show some value, which let me say this particular value is W. Okay. So the spring will say some value which is basically W, and by using this equation which is available over here, the power is equal to Wn by K. We will be able to identify how much power is basically generated in the shaft. Okay, so this is how the whole fluid dynamometer or say fluid friction dynamometer will be used. Now this kind of fluid friction dynamometers are most commonly used in the automobile system, because this kind of dynamometer are having the higher range. They can measure the power up to 20,000 kilowatts and they can be used at the speed up to 10,000 RPMs also. So they are having their own advantages, as they are having the higher operating speed as well as the higher power testing capacity. So there are some of the advantages available. Very first one, it can be used for the higher power as we discuss. Okay. Secondly, whatever the water supply to the dynamometer also serve as the cooling system. So there is no separate cooling system required for this particular dynamometer, and the high absorption capacity is there in the very small spaces also. Okay, so basically compared to the previous dynamometers, the Prony brake dynamometer and the rope brake dynamometer, the space that is required for the same capacity will be very less, as well as the cost that is generated for the same capacity measurement will be very less. That's why the hydraulic dynamometers are most commonly used whenever there is a high power measurement required and whenever there is a high speed measurement is required. So this is the end of this specific session. In the next lecture, we will continue with the dynamometer and we will be learning about the eddy current dynamometers, torsion bar dynamometers and the servo controlled dynamometers. So till then, keep learning. Have a good day.